Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Zach with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo, and we're one day removed from the firing of Jason Garrett. Some people had mixed reactions. A lot of people were really excited. Personally, I'm excited, but it doesn't mean a lot is going to change. But we do think some things are going to change based on what Joe Judge said and just the style that Freddie Kitchens plays with. I personally think things will be a lot more aggressive, a lot more throws downfield, despite the fact that we have a poor offensive line. So we're going to talk about that. Some statistics that we have to give based on his play calling in the past, what we saw last year against the Browns, which Freddie Kitchens was calling the plays in that game because Jason Garrett was out due to COVID. But I just watched the whole game, like 30 minutes ago. I watched the whole game, so I have some pretty decent insight into what they're going to do, what I think is going to happen here. And Colt McCoy started in that one, not Daniel Jones. So there's a couple of different wrinkles that we should expect going into this game against the Eagles. Anthony, before we dive into all the good stuff, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's a shame that I missed out on the reaction video to Jason Garrett's firing yesterday. Honestly, we should feel bad for the way that we've been celebrating this, but we just don't, right? Like Giants fans, we don't feel bad. We're like, damn, we have like finally a step in the right direction. Like, yeah, it sucks. I feel terrible. Jason Garrett now no longer has a job. I mean, not to mention he did coach a team as a head coach for a decade. He's got millions of dollars in the bank. I don't think this is going to bankrupt him. Hate to be celebrating on somebody's downfall, but it might mean the upcoming of the New York Giants. And that's mainly what I'm celebrating here because this really is a step in the right direction for the Giants. Finally recognizing that there is a clear and obvious deficiency holding this team back and cutting their losses, moving on from it, and hopefully moving forward on a new path towards a brighter future. That's what I'm getting from this firing. Now, Freddie Kitchens is going to step in as the interim offensive coordinator for the rest of the season. I think that's super interesting. Many of you long-term viewers and listeners of this channel / podcast might remember did a solo video weeks and weeks ago about why the Giants should fire Jason Garrett and go ahead and elevate Freddie Kitchens to offensive coordinator. This has been a long time coming in my eyes. This is something that I pitched months ago that the Giants should do. Really like the idea of Freddie Kitchens taking over here. I believe I made that video back in October, early October. This is something I'm super excited for. I believe in Freddie Kitchens as an OC. I understand many people think of Freddie Kitchens. They think of that terrible 0-16 season that he had with the Browns, or that was Hugh Jackson, but still, terrible season with the Browns regardless. And, everything kind of fell apart once he became head coach there. But some coaches in the NFL are not meant to be HCs, but they're great as OCs, assistant coaches. I think that's always been the case with Freddie Kitchens. I never thought he would succeed as a head coach. Pat Shurmur is another prime example of that. The Giants fans, you should know that all too well. Sometimes some coaches are just far better off as assistants, and I think that's exactly what Freddie Kitchens is. I'm hoping that he steps into this interim assistant role, steps in, does a great job over the course of these final 7 games, and main thing, gives us Giants fans and Giants talent evaluators a chance to see whether or not there's something to build on with Daniel Jones. It's been really hard to tell if there is something there with Daniel Jones in this offense with Jason Garrett, with this offensive line in front of him. But hopefully Freddie Kitchens can, expand the playbook a little bit, make some tweaks here and there, some changes, and hopefully give Daniel Jones a real chance and prime opportunity to establish himself as the guy going into next year. I would really like to see him step up his game over these final 7 weeks, and hopefully Freddie Kitchens can help him do just that.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that that's the case. And I just watched the first half of the Bucs game, which the Giants lost 30-10. But of course, there's a couple of things that really had an impact, a negative impact in this game, right? So first and foremost, Daniel Jones wasn't blameless in this game. The first drive, they should have walked away with points. He missed a throw to Kadarius Toney, wide open on Antoine Winfield. He should have stuck on that route. He moved off of it too fast. Personally, I think he's shell-shocked from poor offensive line play the last 3 years. I think he's moving through his reads so quickly that he doesn't really allow them to develop. But he should have noticed that he has one of his best receivers on a free safety and a slower one at that, and he should have taken advantage of it. So I blame Daniel Jones for that 100%. The very next play, he has 3 windows of opportunity to throw the football, and he misses all of them and throws it over Kadarius Toney's head, wide open in the middle of the field to Kenny Golladay. Just doesn't throw it. I don't know why. He's not anticipating it. He's not seeing it. So I blame him 100% for that. But then there's other plays that I broke down on the Twitter page, on my Twitter page. If you want to go check it out, I posted some pictures, circling some route concepts and just ridiculous stuff that Jason Garrett, I don't even know how he sits or how he used to sit. Thank goodness we get to say used to sit. He was the OC. How he actually developed some of these plays, because they don't make any sense. They would roll out to the right. They had designed rollouts for Daniel Jones to the right side of the line of scrimmage, and you would see bunched up receivers with no space in between them. like no space in between your receivers. You not only are you forcing the field to shrink, and you're not even spreading out your receivers in that zone that you have, right? So you're shrinking the field and putting them in a position to fail. Lackluster attempt at maximizing talent.
Yeah, Alex, this is something that I've been mentioning for a very long time. The bunching up of the wide receivers. This is something, Alex, we've done red zone breakdowns specifically, and I've always said I hate shrinking the field in the shrunken part of the field, right? The Giants were basically doing the same thing on those fourth and twos, those third and twos, shrinking the field, giving Daniel Jones only half of the field to work with by rolling him out. It shrinks the field completely. Even Peyton and Eli mentioned that on the Manning cast, that they were shrinking the field unnecessarily on a 2 yard play. All they need is 2 yards. There's no need to shrink the field any further. It's already shrunken because they already know the defense knows you're just trying to pick up those 2 yards. So your field is shrunken in that regard. And then when you're rolling out to shrink it further, well, now you have a shrunken depth and a shrunken width. You're just basically putting Daniel Jones in a tiny little box to operate in. And that's extremely difficult for any quarterback to make work unless you're scheming that together beautifully to where someone's just wide open in that box. But that's unfortunately not what Jason Garrett was doing. This is something that I've been harping on for a very long time. I hate the shrinking of the field, and I really like and prefer much more spread out, spread offenses. What you see the Rams, the Cardinals, all the top tier, high motion, high gear offenses running in the NFL nowadays. Spread it out, give your quarterback some space to operate with. Don't just shrink him down into this very small portion of the field and try to force him to make an errant throw and try and force a play to happen. Never understood Jason Garrett's consistent usage of the shrunken field, and hopefully that's something that changes with Freddie Kitchens going forward.
Yeah, and it will change because there was a couple things that I observed in this play calling game for Kitchens against the Browns, but it wasn't only in the shrunken portion of the field. Like there was a play call against the Bucks where there was 3 receivers in the middle of the field running into one another. I don't know to understand like a lack of execution, whatever that might be, lack of knowing the play. I mean, that's a big reason why Anthony, you kind of pointed out to me before that Art Stapleton really took a nice picture of Daniel Jones. He had a wristband on with the play calls on it after practice today. So what does that mean? It means that they might be doing a couple different things in terms of installing a couple new plays, maybe efficiency in terms of relaying the play call. They can say DJ 13, number 13 or number 12 or whatever it might be, and he can read the play and get it to his guys appropriately. But maybe there was some sort of miscommunications. Jason Garrett wasn't reading the play calls properly, or he wasn't, I don't know, just streamlining the actual information could be beneficial. Maybe allowing Daniel Jones to be a little bit more progressive with his mentality, a little bit more aggressive in terms of if he wants to go hurry up offense, he can do so, and he has some plays he can call. If he feels like there's a play, maybe he sees something, maybe he sees there's an opening in the A gap, maybe he sees a safety's biting down, he wants to take advantage of that on the next play, run the same play, but actually have Darius Slayton run a deep post. Whatever it might be, maybe he can actually incorporate a little bit more creativity and flexibility into this offense, which I think would be a really beneficial thing because I think he really acted like a robot, man. The guy was like from iRobot. Will Smith's out there trying to hunt the guy right now, and I think that ultimately giving him that little bit of creativity. There were plays where they were broken, offsides plays where Daniel Jones would sling the ball downfield, and I was like, wait a second, like where is that quarterback? Why don't we get to see him take shots, take risks? What we're going to see from Freddie Kitchens is a lot different than what we saw from Jason Garrett, even if it's the same playbook or a similar playbook, right? So last year, Colt McCoy, the game that he started when Kitchens was play calling, posted a 7.13 yards per attempt, the highest of his 4 starts and the 4th highest of Jones's entire season. So that would have been one of Jones's best games in terms of going downfield. He averaged way higher intended yards as well. So that's a really interesting point because they're going to be throwing beyond the sticks, not below the sticks. They're going to be taking shots downfield, fitting it into tighter gaps. And I think that this is kind of what we should expect from Freddie Kitchens' playbook. Basically, what I wrote down after watching the entire Browns game was we should expect way more throws 15-plus yards downfield, especially in man coverage, 12 to 13 personnel, downhill running, more crossing concepts, which I personally love. I love the mesh concepts. We don't use them enough. It really drags guys out of position. It forces guys to run into each other or try to avoid each other and gives you that extra step. Some spread offense on passing downs. Use the whole field. Don't run your guys into each other. It doesn't make any freaking sense. And focus on the playmakers, right? When Freddie Kitchens was there, Sterling Shepard got really involved. Wayne Gallman was really involved. Those are pretty much our top playmakers last year for the most part. And then Evan Ingram got really involved as well. So there was a couple of really good opportunities. There was a couple of really bad drops from Evan Ingram and Darius Slayton in that game. They got into the red zone 4 or 5 times. They weren't able to finish on touchdowns, but he was extremely aggressive. He pushed the ball downfield. You have a wide receiver like Kenny Galladay. Give him opportunities, man. Throw the ball up in man coverage. Chances are he's going to catch it. The guy is 6'4", massive wingspan. Throw it up to a guy, let him make a play. That's what gets the offense running. That's what gets guys motivated, right? If you're just running dink, dunk, 3 and out, dink, dunk, interception, because the linebackers are reading that short portion of the field, you got to stretch the field. It opens up the playbook entirely, and it gives your offense motivation. A lot of football is mental. A lot of it is confidence. A lot of it is momentum. If you don't have the momentum ever, how are you ever supposed to score points? So, Anthony, when you're looking at Freddie Kitchens, how big of a difference do you think this is going to be? Of course, the offensive line is going to hold back the offense no matter what. But in man coverage specifically, they got to say, Daniel Jones, take shots. Stick on those reads that you think are going to be good for you. Stick on the Kadarius Tonys versus Antoine Winfields of the world. That's where you're going to make your money. That's where you're going to prove to us you can be a long-term solution.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull out a ton of stats that I have from Freddie Kitchens. These were stats that I used in that video weeks and weeks and months ago, actually, when I was discussing why Freddie Kitchens should take over as OC when the Giants inevitably fire Jason Garrett. And here we go. I'll break them down right now. So we all know Freddie Kitchens was the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns in 2018 after about 8 weeks through the season. Originally, it was Todd Haley. Now, I've heard some people on Twitter mention Todd Haley should be a candidate for the next Giants OC position. No, 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 absolutely not. That will just be rinse and repeat of what we had with Jason Garrett, because Todd Haley was fired after 8 weeks with Baker Mayfield, and it wasn't until Freddie Kitchens stepped in that Baker Mayfield had that breakout that almost got him the Offensive Rookie of the Year award at the end of the season. Of course, Saquon Barkley won that award, but Baker Mayfield was a pretty close candidate. So when Freddie Kitchens took over, under Todd Haley, Baker Mayfield's yards per attempt was 6.8. 6.8 yards per attempt. That is terrible. That's very comparable to what Daniel Jones is doing right now in the Jason Garrett offense. But once Freddie Kitchens took over, skyrocketed up to 9.1 yards per attempt. Now that's huge. That's a huge difference in terms of NFL, like the scale of yards per attempt. That is ginormous. Baker Mayfield's average depth of target in that rookie 2018 season with Freddie Kitchens coaching him was 9.6 yards. Average depth of target. Compare that to Daniel Jones's 8.0 average depth of target from this past season, 2020, under Jason Garrett. Huge, huge difference. Now let's go ahead. 2018. Remember, this is only the second half of the season because Todd Haley was still working with Baker Mayfield for the first half. But whole season, 20 plus yard attempts, 72 from Baker Mayfield in his rookie season, 76 the following season when Freddie Kitchens was the OC slash head coach for the entire year. 76 20 plus yard attempts. Daniel Jones, 2019 in 12 games, only 54 20 plus yards attempts. 2020 with Jason Garrett, 43 total for the entire season. Horrible, horrible statistic right there for Daniel Jones. Last year, under Jason Garrett, only 43 20 plus yard attempts. Is this offense struggling to get vertical or what? Baker Mayfield, compare it 43 to 76. That's 33 extra 20 plus yard passes downfield. That is going to be the major effect that Freddie Kitchens will have on this offense. Get the ball downfield. Start to throw the ball deep to some of these playmakers like Kadarius Toney with that blazing speed, like John Ross with that blazing speed, like Kenny Galladay with that giant 6'4" frame to go up there and moss people, be the Babytron nickname that he earned over in Detroit. This is going to be huge. Baker Mayfield, yes, is an inherently more aggressive quarterback than Daniel Jones, but he also enjoys a lot more deep passing opportunities through his scheme. At least he did when Freddie Kitchens was his offensive coordinator. So Freddie Kitchens taking over for these final 7 weeks, I'm telling you guys, we are going to see more vertical passing concepts. We're going to see more deep passes downfield because Freddie Kitchens' offense, the way he sets up, it's based on Bruce Arians' 11 personnel vertical attack. Now, we all know Bruce Arians. We just watched him vertically pass against the Giants on primetime Monday night with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, that offensive scheme, phenomenal. Brian Leftwich is of course calling the plays there, but it's Bruce Arians' 11 personnel vertical attacking scheme that they're running over there in Tampa Bay. And man, does it get the ball downfield or what? Tom Brady has led the NFL in deep passes the past 2 years. He's been bombing it, or this year and last year, since whenever he's been with the Buccaneers. I mean, of course, they have Mike Evans. You can compare that to Kenny Galladay. They have Chris Godwin. You could probably compare him to Kadarius Toney. We could absolutely emulate that style of offense with the personnel that we have. Granted, offensive line not nearly as good as Tampa Bay's. Completely understand that, but we can definitely emulate some of the concepts that are used in Bruce Arians' offense, and that's exactly what Freddie Kitchens will likely look to do because that's where his offense is rooted in the Bruce Arians vertical passing attack. So that's completely different from the Norv Turner offense that Jason Garrett was running. Freddie Kitchens, of course, probably not going to completely scrap the playbook midseason. That's kind of impossible. He's going to use a lot of what Jason Garrett has already installed, but I expect him to install some new plays here and there and actually put an emphasis on the deep passing plays that are already within Jason Garrett's offensive playbook. Because Jason Garrett was not pulling those plays out of the playbook very often. They were in there, but they just were seldom used. I think Freddie Kitchens is going to use those plays far more frequently than Jason Garrett did. And I think you're going to see the Giants start to throw the ball downfield a whole bunch more in these final 7 weeks. It's going to be huge for Daniel Jones. You compare that to what Baker Mayfield was able to do when Freddie Kitchens took over in 2018. Freddie Kitchens is just really good at being that interim OC on a pinch. He gets thrown into the fire. He's good at it, okay? And I think, when you look at what Todd Haley was doing versus what Freddie Kitchens did that rookie season, they basically did have two completely different playbooks. So I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibilities. Of course, it's a little later in the season for the Giants making this change, but Baker Mayfield's offense was completely different under Todd Haley than it was under Freddie Kitchens. So we might see a somewhat drastic difference in terms of placing an emphasis on the deep ball once Freddie Kitchens steps in here. And man, I am very excited for that. Let Danny Dime, let him sling the ball downfield. He was the top next gen stats deep ball passer in the NFL in 2020 for a reason. So now let's see Freddie Kitchens maximize that talent and get the absolute most out of Daniel Jones for the final stretch of this season.
Absolutely. And if you stretch the offense like that, it's going to help the offensive line too, because teams can't blitz you all over and over and over. They're going to have to send, 4 blitzes. They can't send 5, can't send 6, can't play cover 0 all the time, can't play cover 1 all the time. They're going to have to play 2 deep safeties, have to play cover 3 at times. So I hope that that's kind of what happens. I hope that Freddie Kitchens is a little bit more aggressive. Daniel Jones threw 24 touchdowns in his rookie season. Since then, he's thrown 20. That is a big indication of play calling, bad offensive line play. And just everything in between. I mean, the Giants pass blocking unit ranked, I think it was 16th during his rookie season. And it's not like they had good talent, guys. They were still a really bad offensive line then. And mainly, Kevin Zeitler played a big part in, elevating that unit a little bit. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a great unit by any means. The tackles were still a major problem. And I think going downfield, spreading out the offense, getting Daniel Jones more incorporated as a deep ball passer really helped the offensive line, especially in man coverage. And this year, you're looking at his statistics. He's only thrown deep left on 3.3% of his attempts, deep center 2.9%, and deep right 3.3%. Better offenses, better quarterbacks that really have a downfield centric, system. Despite an offensive line, you look at Matthew Stafford, they are hovering in the 7%. So deep percentage, 20 plus yards. Right now Daniel Jones has a 9.6% attempt of it. 9.6% of his total attempts have been 20 plus yards downfield. Most good quarterbacks are hovering in the 11 to 13% range, and then medium range 10 to 19 yards he's thrown 18.1% of his total attempts. I think that number needs to be around 25%. A quarter of his passes should be going beyond the sticks, beyond 10 yards. Short 0 to 9 yards, 55.1%. People aren't trusting. People, don't really trust the offense, don't trust Daniel Jones to do it. I mean, behind the line of scrimmage, 9.4% of his attempts have been behind the line of scrimmage. He's thrown more passes behind the line of scrimmage than he has beyond 20 plus yards, Anthony. How does that make you feel?
Wow. I mean, that's a damning statistic right there for Jason Garrett. I mean, that's probably one of the ones that Joe Judge was looking at. He probably had this whole stat sheet for Jason Garrett's offense and looked at that one and was like, how is that even possible? I mean, honestly, I'm wondering that. How is that even possible? How do you throw more passes behind the line of scrimmage than you do 20 plus yards downfield? Now, I understand the Giants, they like to get the ball to their receivers in space, like to throw some screen passes here and there. But man, that can't be 10% of your offense. You have to have, more of an emphasis on throwing the ball past the sticks. I mean, that's always been a major criticism of Giants fans for Jason Garrett, for sports analysts in general. Dan Orlovsky. I mean, even Michael Strahan went out there and ripped the Giants for that. You have to throw the ball past the sticks. You can't just keep throwing it short of the sticks and then trying to turn upfield and run for it. Throw the ball past the sticks if you want some first downs. And how are you going to get touchdowns? Well, first you got to get some first downs. So that's a huge, super damning statistic that you just mentioned there, Alex. Really interesting one that I wasn't aware of. Thanks for bringing that to my attention and fueling my rage towards Jason Garrett just a little bit more. So hopefully that's something that Freddie Kitchens can fix here.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. But, we'll see what happens this weekend. Hopefully, a little bit more aggressiveness, go downfield, attack man coverage. The Eagles are an interesting defense. They have a great pass rush. They do play some man coverage. They rely on that safety, Darius Slay. I mean, rather, he's a corner, Darius Slay, Avonta Maddox. They're going to need Kenny Galladay to take advantage of the Darius Slay matchup. They're going to need Kadarius Toney. Get him in space. You know what I mean? You hit him with the slants in the pockets. The slants are great. I don't know why Kadarius Toney didn't run a single slant this past weekend. I don't get it. They don't use him properly. They haven't been using him properly. Hopefully, Freddie Kitchens sees him and says, I know how to use a guy like that. And hopefully that will translate to better production on offense. But guys, make sure to subscribe below. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Of course, we'll be putting out some content in the coming days to get you ready for this Eagles game. At this point, the season's kind of over, but we want to see what we got in the offense. We want to see if they're really capable of being good, because at this point, I don't know how much Jason Garrett played a part in this until we see the difference here. Hopefully it's a big one. But enjoy Thanksgiving, as I said, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.